But we're not going to do is we're not going to do like a tool demo of like, how do you create automations and go from step A to step B to step C? That's a separate conversation. What we are going to do is we're going to understand, like, when you automate that one step, how do you get amazing results out of these large language models that really benefit you?
Welcome to the Ecom Breakthrough Podcast. Are you ready to unlock the full potential and growth in your business? You've already crossed 7 figures in sales, but the challenge is knowing how to take your business to the next level.
Welcome to the Ecom Breakthrough Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Hadley, where I interview the top business leaders in e-commerce. Past guests include Kevin King, Michael E. Gerber, author of The E-Myth, and Matt Clark from ASM. Today, I've got a returning guest in Drew Hart, and we're going to be talking about how to build AI bots and tools that are going to set you apart from the rest of the competition. They're going to help you reduce your overhead and also give you the strategies that you need to compete and stay relevant in the marketplace for years to come. In our previous podcast episode, Drew talked about the critical mistakes that business owners tend to make with wasted ad spend on Amazon. So if you want to go back, re-listen to that episode from Drew, it is well worth a listen. This episode is brought to you by Ecom Breakthrough, where I specialize in investing in and scaling 7-figure e-commerce brands to 8 figures and beyond. If you're an ambitious e-commerce entrepreneur looking for a coach or a consultant who can help take your business to the next level, my team and I bring hands-on experience, strategic insights, and the resources needed to fuel your growth. So if you or someone you know is ready to scale or looking for that coach or consultant, reach out to me directly at josh@ecombreakthrough.com. That's ecom with 2 M's, and let's turn your dreams into reality. Today, I'm excited to bring back on the show Drew Hart. He is your go-to guy for all things Amazon. Drew kicked off his entrepreneurial journey in 2018, launching 2 private label brands, and he now has a full services agency called Vinculum. And this is full end-to-end account management services, and it makes him a one-stop shop for all things Amazon success. So with that introduction, welcome back to the show, Drew.
You got a great voice, man. You've got that buttery radio voice. I love it.
Well, hey, that's why I record the audio versions. It's not the video versions. I'm not a TV guy, right? It's just the video. But thank you, Drew.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, it's great to be here, man. Thanks for having me back.
Awesome to have you on the show. I want to dive straight into this topic that we're going to be talking about today because, man, it is a meaty subject. You and I actually set up separate calls to talk about this, and you were kind of running it by me at the time, and you're like, do you think this is valuable? And my mind was exploding of like use cases that I could implement this into my own business. And look, I think that as Amazon sellers and just e-commerce in general experiences a lot of margin compression, with inflation going up, right? You have tariffs going up. You have Amazon fees only continuing to go up, and Amazon penalizing you more and more for any overstocked inventory or understocked inventory. Like, it's just never ending in terms of the margin compression. So the most important thing that you need to focus on is like, how do I stay relevant as a brand for the next 5 to 10 years? Mm-hmm. And I think what you're going to be showing us today, Drew, is going to be something that people will be able to use and almost have like a professional like mentor that almost like sees it all in their back pocket to be able to bounce ideas off of, let alone being able to maybe reduce some overhead. And maybe you don't actually need to hire as many staff members as you have because you've got some AI tools and bots working on your behalf. So is that a fair enough segue into this, or why are we even going to be talking about this today?
Yeah, no, that's great. So today's discussion, all right, and we're going to share some content with you, and we've got some free goodies for everybody too. We're going to get into the technical side of like how these large language models work. We're going to specifically focus on ChatGPT. So if I say ChatGPT or large language model, that's the same thing, right? But we're not going to do is we're not going to do like a tool demo of like, how do you create automations and go from step A to step B to step C? That's a separate conversation. What we are going to do is we're going to understand, like, when you automate that one step, how do you get amazing results out of these large language models that really benefit you? So we're going to take a manual approach because we're going to unpack all of this, like complexity, And I'm going to give some people, give like your audience, like a really clear structure around, one, how do you think about these tools? And then two, how do you interact with them to create business tools, whatever those tools are going to be. We're going to get into that. So
I love that. Drew, this is going to be fantastic. You've got some slides that are prepared. So for our listeners, make sure you do come check us out on YouTube, because you're going to want to see the slides that Drew breaks down. And again, there's special bonus. Those that listen all the way through here, Drew does have some free goodies. Like these templates that Drew is about to share with you guys are probably worth over $10,000 itself. Like I'm dead honest.
Really?
I
Should
say
I charge this then? Should I be charging for this?
You need to start charging more for this stuff.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
Super valuable though. So come check it out. So Drew, I'll kind of turn it over to you if you want to share your screen, and
sounds
let's
good.
dive into this thing.
Let's go for it. Let me know if you can see that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So we're going to be talking about harnessing large language models, right? Or ChatGPT. And as we kind of get into this, it's like, well, what does that even really mean? When you start thinking about these tools, these new AI tools that are out there, we describe it as prompt development, right? So when you're going to work with ChatGPT, the default interaction is just a conversation that you have back and forth with the default model that ChatGPT provides. But ChatGPT gives you these really cool capabilities. You can build what they call custom GPTs. And inside those custom GPTs, you're actually going to instruct whatever that custom GPT is. You're going to instruct it to give it context. And the most interesting thing to me about, like programming or developing these custom GPTs is you're going to be doing it, but you're going to be doing it with the English language. Like that is the new programming language for these models. And that matters because as humans, we'll talk back and forth and we'll use language like, oh, you know what you should do is you should just go hire somebody and you should go create the job description and then you should go post that on Upwork, right, to get the thing. I use the word should. Should actually means like a suggestion because I'm being nice. I'm being I'm being informal with, whoever I'm talking to. ChatGPT will also treat that like you're being informal. So if you want ChatGPT to like do something, you need to say you will do this, not you should do this. So even though we're interacting with it with the English language and we're kind of treating it like it is almost a pseudo, entity, like a being, you need to be aware of like the language that you use because that'll matter. But the strategic reasons for why we use it and how we use it to basically maximize the efficiency within our organization. So that doesn't just happen at low levels where we are enabling an analyst and giving them superpowers by letting them work with one of our custom GPTs. It works with the leadership team too. So we'll go through a couple of these examples where that comes into play. But having a bot helps you solve these like really complex problems. You now have a sounding board to, at a minimum, go through kind of like your first iterations of, hey, I've got something that's really challenging. Maybe it's logistics, maybe it's product design, maybe it's like trying to understand like customer problems or whatever those things are. You can work with that custom GPT to sort of unpack what those things are. Another one's like marketing strategy, which is we're literally using this right now. Over the last like 2.5 months, we have built out a pretty sophisticated marketing program for Vinculum, and we launched it this week. Now, we used ChatGPT. We actually built some custom GPT prompts, one for strategy, one for content creation, right? So those types of things. And then we get really sophisticated. We start doing things like if you use the out-of-the-box language that ChatGPT speaks with, like its voice and tone, it doesn't really resonate with like our brand or like who I am as Drew, because I want my content to sound like it's from me. So we have a lot of like cool controls, and we'll share with you guys today, like sort of how we approach all that. But you can do it for a lot of other different things. Like if you want to figure out ways to like differentiate your product or your service, or things like that. And then constructing like, brand identity. Like we're actually working on a new service. We have one that's called Listing Compass, which is sort of like listing strategy for like how do you approach the optimization for a listing. But we're also working on one that's brand focused, which is really, really cool. And that's something that we're working on right now to do. But so you can use it for brand identity. And then, the precision and control, like once you learn how to create these bots, you can really start to dial them in. So there's a ton that you can do. Like this is still, I feel like, scratching the surface in terms of like what you can do with these tools.
Yeah, true. You've already got my head spinning here. I've already been feverishly writing down notes over here because I'm already getting ideas of how I want my team to be able to implement this into our own business. So why don't you go to that next slide, because you do have some examples here.
Yeah.
But here's the thought that's coming to my mind right now, Drew, is with my team, and this is a question for you. Does it make sense for me to almost like tell my team to go out and create a custom GPT to help them in their own role? So like for my supply chain manager, I want you to build a custom GPT that's going to help you make your life more efficient and better, help you make, the decisions for how much inventory are we ordering or not ordering, or how do we optimize our containers for maximum efficiency as we're bringing them overseas, right? I'm almost like thinking like, can I just like provide these instructions, have them go watch this video and say, hey, here's the scripts. Here's what I need you to go do. I want each of you to go build your own bot that's going to help you be 10 times more productive in your own role here in our business. Is that true?
Yeah, the answer is yeah. And you can even get meta on this. So
okay, let's hear it.
You can have them go build a bot that its intention is to help them go build a bot. Because you may go give them that directive and they're like, okay, that's great. Thanks for sending me this video and giving me these, these kind of starting point documents to go build out a bot. They still may not know what that is that they need to build, or given the complexity of the problem that you're solving. So go build a bot that actually understands that domain, that knowledge domain, and then use that bot to actually go design another bot. We do this. We literally do this. We have a master bot. His name's Favios. We name all of our bots. We have a bot named Favios. I don't know why we picked Favios. But Favios is our prompt engineer. That bot literally creates the core constructs for all of our custom prompts. And then from there, we then start branching out. But one of the first things we'll see this when we go through one of the examples here. When we build out we're going to build a customer service agent on this call. And one of the first steps is to create the job description for that customer agent. And that itself is its own sort of like thing. You're building out a bot that will create a job description, and then you use the job description to go create a customer service bot itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I like this. So maybe we'll come back to that, and maybe that will be the encapsulating aspect of this. Is I'm going to ask you like, all right, so how do I go build this bot that's maybe more meta that would then allow my team to go, like I could say, hey, I want you all to go watch this training in this video. That's great. But also here's the bot I want you to use to go get ideas and to go construct your own bot that's going to like actually reduce constraint in your own role and allow you to 10x your output.
Yeah, I think, like depending on your team members and their capabilities, like to explore things, we'll get into some pro tips here in a second too. But it's all about the capabilities in their context. Like if you've got someone on your team that doesn't really understand their knowledge domain very well, or they don't understand like what the goal or objective is that they're going to create, which can be a little confusing because this is all new tech, right? Like there really are no socially understood like norms around like what are we building and how do these work and how do I use them. So if you feel comfortable like letting someone go explore, have them go just build the bot. Like just have them go build like whatever your end goal is, but just realize that they may build something that is 70% useful, 60% useful, 80% useful, right? But it's not really covering like all the little corner cases that might be important to you. That's fine. Go rebuild the bot again after you kind of learn on your first iteration. I think for us, like on my marketing content bots, I think I'm on version 3, Josh, for that. But version 1 was like damn good. It was really damn good. So we just got more and more advanced around like how do we want to dial it in with voice and tone? You'll see things like one of the dead giveaways on AI content right now is like hyphens. Like ChatGPT loves hyphens. So, we want to control for those types of things because we don't want people thinking that we're creating inauthentic content, which I don't think you are, by the way. Like this philosophical topic of like, is it really our content or not? I am the mastermind of like what the content is going to be. And the fact that I use a digital copywriter or I use a human copywriter really didn't change how I go about the process or like fundamentally, it just changed like who I work with in order to execute on that process. So.
Oh, makes sense. All right, well, let's dive into, there's a way that I'm envisioning using this in my own team, but tell me, Drew, as you work with other Amazon sellers, go back to that slide and let's talk about what are the different ways people could use bots in their own brand. Let's go to slide 3.
Yeah, this one right here. Yeah, sorry. So, so I think, the traditional use cases, the ones that I see a lot like online, right? Or with like YouTube videos is people really get focused on like the marketing campaigns. They focus on content creation because, we want to be everywhere for everybody, etc. Doing customer service is a relatively simple one, which we're gonna do that one today. And like doing things like listing optimization for those who are really focused on Amazon, getting your titles right, putting the right keywords in there, even understanding like which keywords need to go in there from lists and things like that. ChatGPT's got a pretty fair amount of knowledge and best practices to understand like getting you to that. I would never say like ChatGPT always produces like the final result, but it does a really damn good job of getting you the draft that you need to review and then finalize and then go ahead and like launch into production. That's true for any of those traditional use cases.
Yeah, I love this. And I think you just touched on something that I think people really need to understand a little bit better with how do you utilize AI? There's a lot of people that just think like, well, AI is supposed to go do all of it for me, right? And that's why there's an apprehension to maybe use AI. But I think the best case and the best use of AI at this point in time is to do the following. And it's called the Steve Jobs principle. It's the 10-80-10 principle. Yep. Okay. And Steve Jobs, when he had the vision for the iPhone, he did the 10% work up front to like visualize and mentally think through like, I'm envisioning bringing a device that can have music stored on it and maybe even a phone, photos, and maybe even that cell phone. Can we merge these 3 things together? That's my challenge for you, right? And I think these are the ways I would conceptually think about it and use it. Then he gives that to his team. And he kind of sets it up, right, to then allow his team to go do the 80% of the work. So he's already done his first 10%. His team's doing the 80% of the work now. That's a big bulk of the actual work. Then he's going to come back for the final 10%. He's going to review the output from his team. And he's going to be like, this makes sense. Maybe not so much this. Maybe let's refine that. Maybe let's dot these I's and cross these T's over here. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the exact same way that I think people should be using AI. It's like, let it do the bulk of the work for you. Then you use your own human intelligence to be like, this makes sense, but only if we modify it this way or change this just a little bit. Do you like that principle? Would you agree with that's the way you're using 100%, AI?
100%. Like we're using AI in so many different ways, and they're embedded and integrated into like our workflows, like our formal workflows, SOPs. We use ClickUp, right, to actually like automate the workflows, and the tasks themselves follow along an SOP. And then in the middle of those stages, there's work that needs to be done that's done by a human and work that needs to be done that's done by a bot. The 10-80-10's right. We give 10% load up, frame it up, give it the context. 80% is done by the bot. And then the final 10% is done on review, refinement, like truly create that final like finished product on the outside of whatever that process is. Then it's complete. We never rely on the output of a bot on its own. It's not always accurate. And in fact, like when you kind of start building out your own bots, you'll be somewhat disappointed in the precision that comes out of it. if you become really good at prompt engineering and prompt design, you will dramatically improve that final stage, that final 10% of that review process, or the 80% that the bot completes. But when you're first starting out, like, you can't expect the bots to just completely automate all those things unless it's just something that's like low value, right? If you're writing a transactional email and you're having the bot kind of like do the draft, yeah, you don't have to put a lot of overhead into that. But if you're going to go build a serious workflow within your business, you're going to need to take an iterative approach, and it has to have a human, quality control component to it for sure.
Love it. Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant ideas. So we
Yeah,
talked
and
about
even when you're doing your own personal bots, it's the same thing, right? Like we talk about this strategic consultant. That's a bot that's for Drew. That's not sure, I'll give it to my team to go use, but even my interaction with that bot, I have to take it with a grain of salt. And depending how good I am about actually communicating the context and instructions that I'm actually asking of that strategic consultant, it's either going to give me like good results, or is going to give me great results. It's always going to give me results, by the way. Like ChatGPT tries really, really hard to like look amazing.
Yeah, I like that. What are some other advanced use cases here then?
Yeah, so one of the first ones that we did was an innovation workshop. We actually, and this was like the first kind of like cool use case for like getting really sophisticated with the layering that you can set up within ChatGPT. So the innovation workshop is, you basically tell it that you are an innovation workshop facilitator. And I got this off of a Medium article initially, like somebody else's idea. And then we started just kind of iterating on it. But it was like a menu driven system, and you would kind of like go through like an innovation kind of workflow within the context of ChatGPT. But it was really cool because you can give it the inputs like, hey, listen, I'm trying to problem solve. How do I diversify my manufacturing sources so that I work away from China, right? Because tariffs are coming, something like that. It's a big, bold, like strategy kind of idea. The innovation workshop bot will then start coming up and start working with you with asking you creative questions. You then have to give it the answers. Then it comes back with like alternative considerations. And then as you move through each of its phases, it'll eventually come down to like, here's like the top 10 possible outcomes that you have shared with me as the human. Here's what you've shared with me that are like viable for you to go explore further.
Very interesting concept.
When you want to do that first draft, like we have a leadership team, right? We have 5 people on our leadership team. I may not want to go do that innovation workshop initially with them. Now, in the past, I might have, because that's really the only way that I'm going to be able to go brainstorm qualified ideas. But now with ChatGPT, if I give it enough context about my problems and my situation, and it understands like what we're doing, I can go and have that first round of innovation. I can then go into a conversation with my leadership team, get a better utilization of that time, and prime the discussion with some, like some direction that's already been developed before anybody's even like started talking about the topic.
Drew, maybe a question that I have that's coming to my mind here is, if your team members are going to be used, like let's take your 5 leadership team members as an example. Do you provide them each with their own ChatGPT Pro account, right? The subscription account, not the $100 a month one, but the cheaper version of it. Do you pay for that for each of those team members? So as they have these conversations, it creates a memory and it understands who they are, the challenges that they're working on, specific to them. Because I think that's one of the biggest power advantages is like, I've been using ChatGPT for 2 years now. And I could go ask you like, hey, what do you think are my weak points, my weaknesses? And what are the weaknesses in my brand? And that's all I'm giving it. And because I've peppered it with so many different things over the years, like it knows exactly the brand I operate. It knows I have a podcast. It knows the challenges that my team has and things like that. And even myself personally. So tell me how you like structure that from like team to, because it's not, I would assume it's not a shared account to access these. It's like they each have their own.
No, we do use a shared account, but they have their own too, because we pile on. We have like all of our marketing managers use one shared account.
Okay.
ChatGPT's got a couple different features. So let me kind of go through like what you were just asking. So I think the default model for ChatGPT is it's got memory because you'll do exactly what you're describing. You'll have this, subscription model where it's like, it's my bot, this bot works for me. It's got memory about me and it's going to remember that. And that way I can have quick, non-custom GPT conversations, and it's going to maintain some context around me so that it's interacting with me, based on what it knows about me, right? It's memory.
Okay.
But ChatGPT has the concept of projects now. So they look like folders on the left-hand side.
Okay.
Within the project now, so for instance, like we've got projects for sales, we've got projects for marketing, we've got projects for like seller operations. And then if you go in there, all of those conversations are in and around those specific topics. So like our sales one, which does mostly like sales copywriting. So like respond to a client or a brand, maybe they're asking some questions about a service, and I'm still going to architect the response, but I'm going to go inside that project to share my version of like what I want to say. And it's already got all this historical context around style and tone, and it's got history in it that I can then pull out and use within the context of sales.
Okay. So that in that folder or that project, it keeps the memory just of that project and not the whole.
That's the design. That's what OpenAI designed with the concept of those projects on purpose.
Okay.
So it's like a level up, right? Like, again, we're talking about here is sort of like casual interactions, right? With ChatGPT, where I fire it up, I hit new message or new chat, and I start talking to it.
Yeah.
And as I move along, it's keeping context about what am I talking about, either in that project or with the memory, if it was outside of one of those projects.
Yeah.
The third one, though, which is what we'll talk about here, is the custom GPTs. You can put all that memory and all that context in the GPT. You can tell ChatGPT exactly like what you want it to know in terms of the context. So like when we build our bots, depending on the bot, we'll give it context about its role, like its job description, right? We'll also give it instructions around our brand, voice, and tone. We'll also give it instructions around like our services. We'll also give it instructions around like our client type, right? Just like what is our client? It's an e-commerce brand that sells on Amazon, whatever the details are. And that then gets used with its main purpose, right? Writing marketing copy, helping me with a strategic consultant. It needs to know that, maybe not the brand voice, but like it needs to know like who is my client, what is my service. So it's helping me out with, a strategic conversation or even an innovation workshop, it's got confines and context to understand like, how will it start to respond to me, based on whatever conversation we're having.
Awesome. I love it. All right, Drew. Well, let's get into the meat and potatoes of all of this.
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to kind of tee this up real quickly.
Let's do
We're
it.
not going to go open up ChatGPT and do some programming here. What we're going to do is we're going to do a walkthrough around the conceptual components of how to bring like, snippets together to go build a bot. And then for the audience, you guys are going to get all of these like technical documents that would go into a custom GPT. You're going to need to look at them. You're going to want to like sort of review them and unpack them. It's all English, so you're not going to struggle reading any of these documents. But for now, we're not going to like actually go and do a walkthrough with ChatGPT on how to create a custom GPT or if you need that, honestly, go ask ChatGPT.
Yeah. And look, a lot of this stuff, it's not as complex, when you talk about programming, coding, things like that. It's not as complex as as it seems. Fact and point being that I've created my own custom GPT, and I am about as far away as from being a coder or developer as one humanly can be. So if I can do it, you can do it, is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, totally. And I'll just start diving into this. What we're really going to be talking about is like, how do you sequence and put the components together to get good results? That's what we're talking about. So when we use this word programming, we're not really programming like at all. Like we're not doing programming like in a traditional sense. All we're doing is I'm going to share with you guys our practices, what we consider to be our best practices for how to do prompt design. Use it, change it, explore it, like play with it. But this is just how we do it. So when we look at the structure of creating a prompt, so we are actually going to ask ChatGPT to build a custom prompt. And to do that, we are going to give it a prompt. So we're going to say, hey, pretty please go build a strategic consultant. But when you do that and you say pretty please, what exactly is included in all that? And so there's sort of 4 parts that we look at when we're asking ChatGPT to start to produce a bot. Now keep in mind, we're not interacting with anything. We're building a bot at this point. We're not actually interacting with that bot. So the first step is you got to give it some instructions and you got to give it some features. So you'll see here, we want to create an interactive bot that can assist with internal teams with customer service. It gets cut off, but that's what we're going to do there. The red section that says prompt structure, we actually are going to tell ChatGPT to produce output that is in a structured format. And the reason is because then we can review it, we understand how it's organized, and then we can make customizations to the prompt in a very structured way. The final piece is this output formatting, and it's just a technicality. We want, at least for Vinculum, we want our output to be consistent. This may seem a little over the top if you're first doing this, but what will end up happening if you adopt, like you start building out your own bots, you're going to build out not one, you're going to build out 20 bots. And some of those bots, you're going to want to hot swap parts and share them across each other. So for instance, if we talk about like our client personas, we will go in this first bot and we will go create a client persona section. When you create a 3rd or 4th or 5th bot, somewhere along the line, you may want to pull in that customer persona component, but you don't actually have to go and recreate that. You can just go open up, bot A, copy the customer persona section and paste it into bot, K or L or whatever one you're building. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. And Josh, if anything I'm saying is like not clear, just like let me know and I can reframe it. Okay. So this is what we're going to do is we're going to build a bot that's got these components and you guys are going to get the swipes for this. So you will get instructions, features, prompt structure, and output formatting. So these are little screenshots that you can read. Don't bother trying to like replicate those or anything. You're going to get the actual codings that you can use to do this. So when we actually build out a prompt, there is sort of a process that you need to go through. When we do this, we do it from what I would call is like a clean slate approach. The first step for me to build a customer service bot is I want to create a job description, and then I want to sort of like create the main bot. It's just going to be a customer service agent. So they're going to get questions about Amazon products, and they're going to formulate answers based on, answers that I'm going to craft, but I want the bot to reframe them, right? So the main bot is going to include the instructions, the features, and then this structure and output that we talked about in this slide. And it's going to actually give me a bot, but that first version on step 1 is probably not going to be good enough, but I need to start somewhere. And I don't want to try and tell ChatGPT, build me the perfect bot in one step. So the first main bot is just give me a generic kind of customer service bot that meets some main criteria that I'm looking for. Then once ChatGPT does that and you like the output and you've modified it slightly to meet your needs, you're then going to want to add in some specific type of feature or detail like your brand and voice. So you may not want to put your brand voice instructions in the main bot. You may want to do that as a feature detail. And when you do that, you go develop your brand voice with ChatGPT using this stack of instructions, and it will produce an output format that you can then insert into your master prompt. That's what you're doing with additional feature in step 3. You're then going to take part 1 and part 2 and say, bring these 2 things together and make it a cohesive bot. That's the general process. Each of these things are done in a separate chat instance. I'm not creating my main bot, then asking it to add the feature, then asking it to bring it all together. I'm not doing that in one conversation. I am breaking those up into 3 different conversations.
Okay.
You may or may not like that, and you can play around with it. We do it because that clean slate approach gets us really clean results.
Yeah, so you're basically like taking each of these one at a time, opening up a new chat thread to.
Yeah, exactly right. Yep. And specifically, we just do it on tabs, right? So number 1 will be tab 1, number 2 will be tab 2, number 3 will be tab 3.
Okay.
And just to kind of share with the audience, like the reason I'm suggesting that is your conversation you're going to have about the main bot is probably going to get lengthy. And you're going to be talking to it and giving it context and modifying it and looking at the output and then saying, no, yes, I like these things, I don't. When you finally get to step 2, there's so much noise in that discussion, it'll get lost on what you're trying to accomplish with feature detail. So when you want to try and add in that voice and tone, you're like, oh, like, what are you doing? Like, you're not doing like what I thought you wanted to do. That's why you want to start that new chat instance and just start from a clean slate. That's the idea behind it. If you don't think you're going to run into that problem, it's fine. Go ahead and mix the steps together, right? Sometimes I will actually do that, Josh, but to keep it really clean, if you're first time doing this, your conversations with ChatGPT could get lengthy and it gets noisy.
Yep. Agreed. No, I agree. And it's going to keep it a lot more clean. So good tip.
Yep. Okay. So we're going to build a customer service agent. I'll go through this really quickly because anyone who's on the, or watching this, that you guys can kind of read through this, but I name all my bots. I just do that because when you get into the coding piece, it makes it really clear who's who. If I say the word you in the instructions, who are we talking about? So Kathy is our customer service agent. That way, Kathy knows the difference between herself or itself and clients and you and potentially somebody that you're going to be talking to as a shopper. Because if it's a customer service agent, you might actually have somebody who's named Kathy.
True.
You're writing a letter to.
Yeah. Do you have a prompt? Is that in kind of one of the swipes that you instruct the bot or you name the bot, whatever it is, and you say your name is now officially Kathy? Whenever I refer to Kathy, I'm referring to you as the GPT.
Actually, when you get the swipes, we give you a variable name called bot name. And then as you're building the bot, you will maintain that variable bot name. And then when you're done, when you finally get to the point where you're going to like implement this, you just do a find replace bot name with Kathy. And then that's it. You'll see when you see the swipes, it'll be really clear because the variable names are like, they're bracketed. They look like code. They're bracketed, and you'll just be able to swap out those. Okay, so Kathy helps team members. So Kathy's an assistant for an internal team. Kathy's not your customer service agent. Kathy's your customer service agent, subject matter expert who helps craft messages. She handles common queries. She doesn't do any of the tricky stuff, right? You can try and throw tricky stuff at her and see how she does, but the intention with this design is that she handles all the common things. So 80% of your customer inquiries, 90% of your customer inquiries are going to be the common ones. We're going to implement a menu-based interaction, meaning Kathy's going to ask what style do you want me to be in right now? Do you want me to be like assertive? Do you want me to be casual? Do you want me to be polite? What is that interaction style going to be? And then she's going to generate predefined speaking styles because depending on what the customer query is, you either need to be like really formal and polite, right? Because they might be a shopper who's like really bitchy, or it might be somebody who's like, I love this product, and you just kind of like want to be casual because that's your brand voice and tone. And then, then she's going to implement some brand specific policies. So there's a lot here, right? In terms of like what we're going to build. When we go back to this structure, this 1, 2, 3, you're about to see how do we put all that together. So this is a sequence. I did actually build the bot and I put some time limits on like how long it took me to do this. And I didn't exaggerate it. I didn't do it because like Drew's really fast. These are Drew's timelines. I try to give you guys some guidelines around like what I think it would take if you did deep work, you didn't have distractions. It'll probably take you anywhere between an hour to 2 hours to build Kathy from scratch without the swipes. This is like from scratch. So the first
Drew, I think but just to double click into this topic right there, right? Like, I love that you gave people like an understanding, like, look, you're probably looking at 2 hours of time. One of the most important things is like doing deep work. Look, if our listeners aren't setting aside enough time during the day to where you can sit down and have 2 hours of deep work, which means uninterrupted work. Alex Hormozy is the biggest proponent of this, right? Like, Alex Hormozy says he basically locks himself in quote unquote a dungeon, right? It's like 4 walls with no other distractions, no phone, and he's just like, he even puts on silencing headphones, and he's just like, he's locked in, and he will do 10x the amount of work in one day that somebody else will do, because he's doing deep work and he's not interrupted by that. Oh, I got this WhatsApp message. Now I'm in this train of thought for WhatsApp. Like, I have to do that with my phone, and Drew, we're in a lot of those same conversations.
Yeah.
I'm blown away as I look at the engagement that happens just throughout the business day in general. And it's always like, there's always a consistent number of people engaging. And I'm like, do these people not like, maybe everybody's just on their breaks and when I'm seeing it, but I'm like, does anybody actually work around here? Because I don't know how you do that. Like, I have to be able to process things, like even for my text messages, like people will reply, like I'm not replying within 5 minutes, right? Like, it's more of like, I'll get to you in maybe 24 to 48 hours when it works on my time schedule. And that's how you actually move the business forward. So I just think it's like a really important principle. And like, if you invest 2 hours here, I think the other principle of this is it will allow you and the rest of your team to run 10 times faster. So invest the time up front, and this is going to compound week over week, month over month, and year over year in terms of efficiencies in your business. So I just don't want people to sleep on the fact of like, this is a small investment for massive returns that will compound over years.
I cannot agree more. It's like my biggest mistake as an early entrepreneur is that I did not understand the trade-off between deep work and like, no, I've got all these busy things I've got to go be doing. There's a book, Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, that it's super easy to read. It's fast. You don't have to read it cover to cover. You can read chapter 3, then chapter 7, then chapter 1. It's super straightforward advice on what Josh just talked about.
Yep. Obviously, I've read the book.
So, I've got it back here. I love it.
It's a good book. All right, Drew. Well, let's get back into it. So 2-hour process. This is a normal time frame we can expect about.
Yeah, and it's iterative, right? Like, in the first 30 minutes, you can get your main bot going, right? Like you're looking at what I'm describing here is like the full process for this. It might take you longer because you're obsessive compulsive, or you're, like your standards are so high that you're just like, no, it's not good enough. No, it's not good enough. Fine. Like do your thing. All right. So let's walk through this. So the first step is to create a SME. Now, for people who don't know what a SME is, it's subject matter expert. I'm generalizing this because right now we're going to build a customer service agent, so our SME is going to be a customer service agent. I actually need to create that. So what do you want in a customer service agent? This is just like building out a job description. Now, at least I know because I designed this slide deck here, like I'm purposefully going to limit this customer service agent to the criteria that we described here, right? It's going to only handle common queries. This isn't supposed to be some super magical bot that does every single thing for customer service agents. So I'm scoping the subject matter expertise down into something that's pretty straightforward. I'm just going to ask ChatGPT for a job description, no formatting or anything, but I am going to read it and I'm going to massage it, and I'm going to make sure that like I've got what I want. Once I've done that, I'm then going to use this structure. I'm going to take instructions, which is go create a bot, and then I'm going to add the features, which is the job description, and then I'm going to insert, literally copy and paste the prompt structure and the output formatting. So now you see like all these 4 parts. It's really the features and the instructions. The instructions are pretty lightweight. It's the features part that you've got to focus in on. That's the context that you want to give ChatGPT. So when we start talking about the main customer service bot, that's the part you want to focus on, is the meat and potatoes of like, what is this bot going to do? Then what we're going to do is once we kind of get a bot working, I want to wrap this around an internal workflow. So I'm going to take talent that's relatively inexpensive, who I don't want to go hire 4 or 5 bodies to handle my customer service, and maybe a bit dramatic, but I don't want to hire 2 or 3 bodies to handle customer service. I still want to only do 1. But with this bot, I'm going to be able to really expand their capabilities. I may be able to take an employee who maybe isn't English first, Maybe they struggle with how to respond to certain challenging conversations, like potentially like angry shoppers. And the bot's going to handle all of that tricky stuff for them. All they've really got to do is execute on it. So this interaction protocol, again, you guys will get the copies for this, is essentially a menu system. And Kathy is actually going to ask your employee or your team member and say, hey, what are we about to work on? Is this going to require me to be sort of formal, or do you want me to be informal? Like, what are we going to do? And then that's it. So you're going to, as you're building out your bot, you're going to build out the main purpose of the bot. Then you're going to go create the interaction protocol as a secondary step. Again, you're going to create that in a new window, and you're going to take your instructions, which is I want to add an interactive menu, and you're going to say, what do you want to have in there? And then you're going to do the prompt structure and the output formatting along with the main bot added into it. And it's actually going to create the section. When you guys get this prompt structure, you'll see that there's a section designed in the prompt structure for an interaction protocol. Now, we're doing this for a customer service bot, and it's designed that way. If you don't want an interaction protocol, like you don't want a menu-driven system, don't put it in there. Just get rid of it. So next, then we would then add in the brand and voice, and I would do that in a separate chat. And I would work with ChatGPT to describe what my brand voice is. And I would even ask ChatGPT, like, I need you to be a brand voice expert and walk me through an exercise on how do I define and describe and build out a brand and voice. Like, if you don't know how to do that, ask ChatGPT to be that little, bot for you in just a simple chat, and it'll start to produce a brand voice and tone for you. You then add that in to your main bot as a section under speaking styles, which again, it'll come in the swipes that we give you guys. And then finally, like if you've got any brand policies, like, for instance, like you may not offer returns. Maybe your product is super expensive or super bulky and you can't afford to do those types of things. Fine. What you would do then is put those policies into your final custom GPT and just say, like, whenever Kathy produces response, it never does this or it always does this. And then those are your brand policies so that Kathy doesn't do things that you don't want your customer service person to agree on or not agree on.
Makes sense.
That's a quick walkthrough of sort of like what that process looks like. Josh, any questions, or do you want me to expand on this? Did this make sense? Is there anything that you think I should cover further?
No, I think like conceptually, I think this makes sense, right? And I think like you just got to start doing it, which I think is the magic. And Drew, what I love is that you've already created like those swipes for people. And look, this is one of those things that like you're going to get better and better at it over time. And so it's one of those things that like the best way to get started on all this is just simply to get started, right? Mm-hmm. Just go fumble around with it. And Drew, you've already got these amazing swipe files for everybody.
Yep. Yeah. And again, like we kind of set this up, like this isn't intended to be like an explicit like coding walkthrough on everything. Right now it's a little bit abstract. I know, because you guys are getting this presented to you just kind of graphically and everything. Get the swipes, plug them into ChatGPT, start exploring them. You won't struggle figuring this out once you kind of get started. Now I'm showing you like a 6-step process to go build a bot for customer service. I will just tell you guys, for the most part, if you just did 1 and 2 and 5, you're fine. Like you're going to get like almost everything that you want out of this thing just by inserting a job description, using the swipes, and then saying, I kind of just want you to be casual with your speaking style or formal. Because otherwise, like ChatGPT can just sound like an enterprise company. And you're just like, this isn't good. So change its voice and tone. So that tends to be like one big thing.
Awesome.
All right.
Jack.
Okay. So some approaches to prompt engineering. So you guys literally are looking at like how prompt engineering works. It gets more advanced than this. You're getting the under the hood view of this. Folks that put together agents, like large language agents that go do like really sophisticated things. They do the same thing that you're seeing here, but they break down the steps into little tiny components, and then they throw them into tools like Make or Integromat, Taskade or N8N or any of those other tools. But fundamentally, they are interacting with ChatGPT in a similar design style that you're seeing here. So even when you get sophisticated and you start looking at like, well, how can I compartmentalize and automate some of these interactions? This is how you do it. So because you're going to be working directly with ChatGPT and actually talking to it, I put together a couple of best practices for prompt engineering. We already talked about the first one, which is like one feature at a time. The concept here is that, look, if you're going to have a really lengthy discussion about building out a bot or like interacting with ChatGPT, it can get lost over time. So the idea about one feature at a time is to compartmentalize your conversations with ChatGPT so that you're really just focused on like, what are you trying to accomplish with extracting this feature or building a feature out? Pull that out, integrate it into your main bot, and then move on to the next one. Clear, simple, and specific language is really, really critical. We kind of touched on this again earlier where I used the word should. ChatGPT needs to be told what to do. It's like a 5-year-old. Like, it benefits greatly from really direct and clear conversations that it knows like where its boundaries are. So differences in things like words like always, all, any, never, those are absolutes. ChatGPT does really good with those. Like if you never wanted to do something, then use the word never, or the inversion, right? Never do X, or say always don't do Y, or always don't do X, something like that. That's a bad example, but you guys get what I mean. You're going to need to test and iterate. So I didn't cover this. As you're moving through each of these stages, you want to test your bot out. I've got it down here at the bottom. It says test at each stage. Don't just move through these steps. Like when you create your main customer service bot, go pull 4 or 5 actual like customer service questions that come from real humans, throw it at the bot and see how it's performing. And if it's directionally headed where you want it to go, then you can proceed. Otherwise, you got to make adjustments to it. Specifying the output format. I touched on this before. I highly recommend you can choose your own formatting or your own structure. Like you can just take what we give you and then you guys can run with it. But I would highly recommend that you stick to a consistent output format. Again, if you're building this for your business and it's your first bot, you won't see the value. But when you build your 20th or your 30th bot, you're going to get a lot of value out of always having the same output format, because you're going to be able to copy and paste between your bots, and that really will come into play. Role playing is just, giving, this is a pretty common one. I think most people know about this if they're like even remotely into LLMs, but you want to give it a role. So like you'll see in the swipes, you are a customer service agent for a, multinational brand that focuses in and around industrial products. It needs some context on like what its role is going to be. And then it benefits greatly from examples. And they have a bunch of fancy language for what this is called, like 0-shot, 1-shot, multi-shot, 2-shot, things like that. If you provide it 2 examples, it's called a 2-shot. If you provide it 1 example, it's a 1-shot. If you don't give it any examples, that's called 0-shot. But it's a handy little term to know about. But if you can give your customer service bot or whatever bot you're building a couple of examples of what you want it to look like in terms of output or voice and tone or style, that's going to help. That's greatly going to help ChatGPT understand exactly kind of like what are you looking for. Okay. Any questions on that? Those are all kind of the
love
tables.
it. Those are good tips.
These advanced techniques, I would highly recommend you go look these up. Ask ChatGPT about them. Literally, you can use these words. Noun phrase consistency is one of the most important ones, though. So when you build advanced bots, I don't consider this customer service bot to be very advanced. But when you do like a strategy bot, or you're doing a bot, Josh, to your point, like how do I optimize a container? You will want noun phrase consistency throughout your prompt instructions. Noun phrase consistency, you can actually ask ChatGPT to identify it. Like you can use ChatGPT to clean all this up. When you get noun phrase consistency, you are removing the ambiguity of what words you chose to instruct this bot, and you are making them now consistent. So it's a fancy way of saying when you write your prompt, you probably aren't going to use the same language in the top part versus the bottom part of some of your instructions. And ChatGPT is going to interpret the whole thing, and you won't keep track of it. You won't even necessarily know that you're talking about or using a noun phrase differently in one context than another one within your document. When you get closer to finalizing your prompt, ask ChatGPT to analyze and then refine and make recommendations for noun phrase consistency. And what that's going to do is now when you're talking about like a shopper, that you're referring to a shopper in a consistent way all throughout your instructions. It's just a way to make things really clean.
Yep.
First principles. So this is a really interesting thing that you can do. You can actually just ask, using a first principles approach, help me understand like how I would break down a process to build a bot to do XYZ. And ChatGPT will help you with the design process for how do you actually construct a bot. It'll actually tell you like, here's the components that I think that you would want to consider. And if you tell it to do it from a first principles perspective, it'll get really down to the like core aspects of what you want to get to quickly. And then the last thing is chain of thought. And this chain of thought is like what some of these more advanced models are doing, like the 1.0 and the 3.0 models. But you can actually ask your own bots to do this. We do this. We have a strategy bot, and we actually have it use a Socratic method and chain of thought to then go and analyze its own output, create its own questions, answer its own questions, and then finally give me the thing that I'm looking for. So chain of thought is like a really powerful thing. I won't get further into this detail, but basically what you're instructing ChatGPT to do with something like this is tell me how you got there. Like take me through all that. And this is cool because you can use it for something like a strategy bot, right? Because the strategy bot will be like, okay, well, like if I was going to approach this problem, like I would approach it by going A, then B, then C, then D. And you're like, oh, that's interesting. And that's going to get you thinking after you kind of read what ChatGPT is telling you. But the other thing is, if you use chain of thought, like in some of the design aspects of like, say, a customer service agent, you're going to actually get some insights into how ChatGPT comes up with its answers. And that's going to be a feedback loop for you as the human or the prompt engineer or designer to actually learn, how is ChatGPT even interpreting my instructions in the first place? And what is it even considering as it produces its final output for me? In other words, it lets you look under the hood. So those are some really good tips. These are the main ones. There's a ton of them. There's like 17 other things that you can do that are like really mind-blowing things, but they get complicated, and I don't think that they're for most use cases.
Yeah. Drew, this has been super impactful. And as we're running up on time, is there anything else that you need to share that we haven't shared yet?
Not that I can think of, but I'm busy and stuff like everybody, and like Josh was talking about, I'm really focused on deep work. But if this is something that you're really working on and you're interested in talking about it, we don't do this as a service. Like Josh introduced us, we're an Amazon agency. We're not a ChatGPT service. This is just what we're doing. So if you guys get value out of it, that's great. But if you're working on a really challenging problem and you've got like a legit business use case, I'd be interested in helping with those. If you're working on trying to like figure out the customer service agent and stuff like that, look, you're welcome to message me. I may struggle to get back to you with time, but if you've got a really challenging business case that you're working on, I personally would probably be interested in helping somebody work on something like that.
Awesome. Drew, I love this. And you have the swipe files. We're gonna leave this as the cliffhanger for the very end, right? I think you have a QR code to share. Yeah,
I'm not going to share. I'm going to let you share it because it's not wired up yet to the folder that I don't know like where it's going to.
Well, you can share it. You go ahead and share it now because you'll be able to set this up later.
Okay.
So let's share the QR code where people can go get these swipe files. And Drew, by the time this thing goes live and anybody's seeing them, you'll be able to.
What I'm saying, Josh, though, is that this QR code's not wired up to the right folder. Like that QR code's wired up to my Calendly link.
Okay. All right. Well, we can, what we'll do then, put it in the show notes. Do you want to have a link? Or Drew, if you want to just have a link that you want people to go through to access that, that would be perfect.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'll give you guys a link.
Okay. All right. Well, that's easy enough. All right, Drew, as we wrap it up, I'd love to leave the audience with 3 actionable takeaways from every episode. So here are my 3 actionable takeaways from this one. Number one, your most important job as the CEO and leader of a business is to be able to think strategically and critically. And being able to sit down, number one is like, can you carve out enough time in your day and in your week to do deep work? Because it is your job to cast the vision and the mission for your brand. And that's what everybody else on the team needs to be able to follow. So I want to challenge everybody to, Drew, I love that you have a strategy bot, right? And I would challenge everybody, like, create your own strategy bot, because that can be your, maybe copy and paste version of yourself that we all would love to clone ourselves if we could, right? That's the closest thing to it that you can kind of program that way. And that will allow you to think into the future, do the 10-80-10 principle. Action item number 2 is I would highly encourage each of you to take this podcast and send it to your team members, okay? Especially your leadership team. And I would have you challenge them to think through, hey, what is the biggest constraint that you face in your role? And how could we leverage the use of AI and a bot to help move you through those challenges more quickly, okay, to be able to level up your output. My third and final action item is, if you want to really take it up a notch, is do what Drew said and create your own bot that then you give to your team, a custom GPT that says, hey, use this. And as you walk through this, it's going to help walk you through mental models to help you identify what is your constraint in your role, to then be able to identify what type of bot you should be working on. So that's going to be the challenge for myself that I will be working on before I roll this out to my team. But I do believe that this is one of those things that, yes, it does require work up front. This is not an easy button solution, but I do believe that this is one that will pay dividends consistently, and your investment will compound month over month, year over year. Drew, anything else to say on that note?
No, I think, this is where the future is. So anybody who's like interested in invest in it, invest. The large language models themselves, there'll be some tech changes here in the next like 2, 3, 4, 5 years. People will start automating them and making it easier for them to interact with. But if you understand these fundamental principles, which you do through like these exercises, you're going to have a huge leg up in understanding like the inner workings of these models. That's what you're going to get from this. It's going to make your innovation even that much more innovative.
Love that. Drew, final 3 questions for you. What's been the most influential book that you've read and why?
I'm reading Alex Hormozi's books, the 100 Million Offers and 100 Million Leads. Awesome book. If anybody is reading that, the offers book is by far, like, for econ people. Look, the leads one's interesting for like how you can use it with the customers and how to spike sales and things. But the offers one is the one that I think is really interesting, because Alex is so adamant about value, being value oriented. Value stacking is the phrase that he uses. The light bulb has gone off for us on this, and everywhere you're adding value with what it is that you're delivering, whether that's a product or a service, that book has been really, really, and he writes like a kindergartner. So like, you're going to understand like what he's talking about.
So Drew, on that note, how does an Amazon seller better enhance their offer on Amazon itself? What have been the ideas that have come to your mind that way through that?
Well, it turns out, we have a service for it. We literally have a service for listing optimization, which is a really boring term. Everyone thinks that that's creative work, and it is. Getting amazing, stunning visuals is super critical. But it's, we talked about this before the call. It's about dialing in those emotional connection points. Like, what are the emotional triggers that you can identify? And I think there's just a ton of sellers, US and non-US, that just miss the mark. They're really focused so much on facts and figures. That's the table stakes information, but like, how are you actually affecting someone's life? What problems are you actually solving? This unique selling proposition, super important, but like, how does it affect me as a buyer? Like, what are you helping me accomplish with your product? And that stuff gets ignored. They don't show up on listings, or the listings that do show up, they stand out. Like, sellers know it too.
Yep. Love that. Great takeaway. I 100% echo that as well. All right. Question number 2. What's your favorite AI tool or software tool, ChatGPT prompt that you've been using?
Can I say ChatGPT? Because we were just talking about that.
Sure.
yeah, of course, ChatGPT is fantastic. It's amazing. There's a lot of discussion around DeepSeek and everything, but my take on the DeepSeek stuff is that it's the same tool as ChatGPT. Their infrastructure just happens to be less expensive to operate, but it's not a different service per se to the user. But a really cool tool that we're playing around with right now is called Gamma App. And there's a couple of different services like this, but it's like an auto presentation kind of like document creator. It's pretty badass. I was really impressed with that. But there's like 4 or 5 other ones that we're looking at. But that one's really exciting. What else? We're really starting to mess around with like image creation and doing things like that. We have someone on our team that really, images are way different than like what we were just talking about. But we've had someone who's like been really digging into that and trying to understand like how to control the images better. I think the bottom line is like, go use the tools. Don't try and do it directly with Midjourney or something, because it's so complicated to try and dial it in.
Yeah. What
But
other?
They're great. They're great. I mean, they're just like, it's amazing what you can do.
Yeah, I've heard of Gamma. Give me a couple other ones that you mentioned, like we're looking into. Like, what are some other like just exciting ones? We don't have to have like good use cases for them. Just throw out some interesting ones that have sparked your.
I'm into the automation side of it now. So like Make and Integromat's what we use. That's our main one, and it's because we inherited it before even ChatGPT came out. Like we didn't use Zapier, we used Make. Yes. So now Make's got APIs to go into ChatGPT. N8N is the next one that we're working with, which is another automation platform that integrates with the large language models. And then Taskade is the other one that I'm looking into. But I don't think we're going to pull away from Make. I think we're too embedded in there. But some of these other tools, they've got some really special use cases that we might split some of our projects out into some of these other platforms. But those tools are just like continue to evolve. The other ones like going back to Gamma, Gamma does like document creation. So document creation is pretty generic. It'll produce like slides, it'll produce PDFs, but it'll also produce sites, like actual websites. And it does it like in a really nice way that lets you integrate it. So like you can use Gamma, well, you can use ChatGPT to go produce marketing content. You can have it all spot on with voice and tone. You can then throw that into Gamma to go build a landing page for a special promotion you're running for some seasonal event. And that workflow, when you go play with it as an owner or something, or one of your like high-powered team members, you let them go figure that out. You can create like a system in like, we literally can create content that is like fully polished, on spot, brand, voice, the coloring, everything is like just really spot on. We can do it in like an hour. It's insane. Cool. It's insane. And then all we're left to do, the 10-80-10 rule, is we're left with like the 1 hour, 10 minute, 10% upfront. ChatGPT, Gamma go do the heavy lifting, and then we do 10% of spit polish and make it perfect.
Ah, love that. Beautiful. All right, Drew, final question. Who is somebody that you admire or respect the most in the e-commerce space that other people should be following, and why?
Yeah, I mean, I follow a lot of this, like all the same things that like you do, right? Like you're like, honestly, you, Kevin King, Brandon Young, like we talked about, MDS is really great. But to be honest with you, like a lot, just because of the amount of time that we spend doing this, it's our clients. We learn so much from the brands that we work with. They want and look for experiments and new ways to try to like come up with creative ways to grow or use data to make insights to take action on those types of things. We've got brands that we work with that are smart, frankly. I'm going to call them challenging, but they're not challenging in a negative way. They're challenging in sort of like, how do we continue to stretch and innovate and grow and like push things further? And we learn a ton through those conversations.
Yeah. Awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Drew, if people want to reach out to you, they want to learn more about you, how can they do that?
Yeah, actually, that's what that QR code was all about here. They can contact me here. They can reach out at hello@thinkvinculum.com. That goes to me. If you want to book an appointment with me and learn more about what we do or talk about some of your goals and challenges, we do free consults, so they can book some time there. Otherwise, you can check out our website and our YouTube channel, which is just about to start out.
All right. Make sure you guys scan the QR code right here to get your free swipes. Awesome. Drew, this has been a pleasure. Thanks for joining us and creating custom slides just for us.
Sounds great. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you for listening. Visit ecombreakthrough.com for more information. If you've enjoyed today's episode, the best way you can show your appreciation is by clicking the subscribe button and quickly leaving a review. See you again next time.